The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome into the Hard Count presented by BetMGM. We got college football playoff games on Thursday and on Friday. Some news on that Friday game here, too, in just a matter of moments. It's Tuesday, January 6th, 2025. Last one on the face of the planet. The show for college football fans that understand the transfer portal and using the transfer portal, it's not extra credit. It's a non-negotiable. You want to win at the highest level, it's one of those boxes that you have to check. It is assigned reading. It's homework. It's all those things. You cannot just dip your toe in the portal and kind of look at it sideways, not care all that much about it, and also say, we want to win national championships. Those two things do not go together, as we will address throughout this show. We got our predictions here for you for both the Fiesta Bowl and the Peach Bowl. Down to 4 teams here, baby. Down to 4. You got a little Miami Ole Miss to get the party started, pun intended, on that Thursday night. And the Peach Bowl, Oregon, Indiana, myself and Cade Smith, we will be in the building for it, man. You got the 2 top quarterbacks in the playoff, 2 top quarterbacks in the sport going at it. If you say Trinidad Chambliss is a top quarterback in the playoff, not a lot of pushback from your boy. But with that being said, those 2 guys going at it, we had to be on hand for this one, man. Quick little drive down to Atlanta. So say what's up if you're in Atlanta and you see the boys out and about around Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that is. Let's start, though, with what's going on in the transfer portal. Commitments, moves, intel is running roughshod as we speak. All of that is being corralled by our very own Pete Nakos here at On 3. So get a membership there. And also, shout out to y'all getting Pete Nakos to 100K, man. That's just people helping people, man. We love to see that. But there's a couple of big commitments that have happened since we last talked. So this is including but not limited to Indiana. They've been cruising, baby. I feel like it's the Jesse Pinkman meme from Breaking Bad. He can't keep getting away with it. He can't keep getting it. Curt Cignetti, once again, looks like he's going to get away with having another stud transfer portal quarterback. Josh Hoover from TCU jumps in the portal, says, you know what, Indiana seems nice this time of year with them being in the playoff yet again. Not so much weather-wise, beside the point. Josh Hoover, he was one of my favorite guys jumping into this transfer portal quarterback market for a couple of reasons. I get experience. I get production. He's been top 2 in the Big 12 in passing each of the last 2 seasons. And now you put him in a system with mad scientist Curt Cignetti, eyebrow raising, no shirt wearing under the windbreaker, and we're off and running, baby. You get him, plus you get Nick Marsh. Okay, absolute dog for Michigan State. I mean, he had like over 1,200 yards, I want to say, with his 2 years combined out there in East Lansing. Here's the thing. Michigan State sucked on offense. And Nick Marsh was a dog. So I'm just doing the math here. You go ahead and take a guy that balled in a not-so-good offense, put him in a good offense with a, I think, going to be an even better quarterback in Josh Hoover. Good things are happening. Guess what? Indiana, they are, in fact, still cruising. All right, so that means the rest of the Big Ten is going to have to wear a bruising, and that's just how this whole thing goes. Speaking of playoff teams, though, Texas Tech. Tough loss to Oregon in the quarterfinals, but they went out, spent a smooth $5 million, according to our very own Pete Nakos, and got themselves Brendan Sorsby, quarterback from Cincinnati. Now, if you haven't watched a lot of Brendan Sorsby, no problem. We're going to do a deep dive actually on his game, as well as a number of other transfer portal quarterbacks here when the dust settles. But a word to describe his skill set in one word: smooth. Not smooth, TH smooth. That's V-E at the end of that thing. Just everything about him when it comes to how he moves the ball in his hands, the way the ball jumps out of his hand, like all these things about Brendan Sorsby, I think he is a massive upgrade for them at the quarterback position. It was very obvious to everyone that watched that Orange Bowl game against Oregon. They were a little bit in over their head when it came to what they had on the line of scrimmage offensively versus Oregon's defense. And it wasn't
it wasn't so jarring to where you couldn't have navigated around that if you had a quarterback with some more mobility. They didn't have that. They do now. Brendan Sorsby, I think he's a true game changer for them, man. I think he changes the ceiling of Texas Tech football. As long as Cody Campbell, super booster out there in Lubbock, and James Blanchard, super GM out there in Lubbock, are involved in putting that roster together, they're going to, I think, have the best roster in the Big 12. Now you got a quarterback who can go win you some football games in the college football playoff when you get there again. So the feet a little bit soggy for the folks in Texas Tech when it comes to getting some playoff experience. Now you get to go do something with it here this time next year. Again, I think it just drastically changes what Texas Tech can be here going forward with the addition of one of the top quarterbacks in the transfer portal, taking his talents to Lubbock. Penn State, not a massive surprise, but the Matt Campbell era on and popping with his quarterback that he had in Ames for what felt like the last 27 years. Rocco Becht, going to make his way out to Happy Valley. Also coming with him, a tight end named Benjamin Brahmer. If you haven't watched this dude play, he's a matchup problem, especially in the red zone. Big body, go up and get it for you. Going back to Rocco Becht, though, the thing that I love about this get from Matt Campbell, it's not surprising. It's not like making headlines, but I think your personality of your leadership, those of you that watch know where I'm going with this, personality of leadership dictates persona of football team. Head coach is a massive part of that. But I think the best teams are player-led. Getting Rocco Becht into that locker room to reset and install Matt Campbell's culture in Happy Valley, I think that's huge. And I think for it being the first year at Penn State for Matt Campbell, this is just insurance that, hey, I know the guy driving my offense, the guy leading my locker room is someone I trust with every fiber of my being. So Rocco Becht and Ben Brahmer, two big hits for the offense out there in State College, and excited to see them go hopefully make some waves in the Big Ten next year. Now, Oklahoma State, they got the nucleus of the North Texas offense committed to Stillwater. You got QB1 Drew Mestermaker last year for North Texas, and RB1 Caleb Hawkins making their way out to Oklahoma State. This is just big because you have continuity. Like I said, Eric Morris, first year at Oklahoma State. The thing to mention here, both these dudes are young bucks. They were freshmen last year. So you hope they can show up day one in the Big 12 and make some noise and have no problem acclimating from G5 to Big 12. That's all well and good. I get excited, though, about Mestermaker and Hawkins like 2 years from now when they're both juniors. What are they doing in that conference? But nonetheless, good little jump start for the folks out there in Cowboy Country. Wisconsin landed Old Dominion quarterback transfer Colton Joseph. Now, if you haven't watched much Colton Joseph, I would definitely recommend doing that. Some other schools that were in the mix for him or sound like they could be in the mix for him was Florida State and other schools like that. Now, I don't have a definitive take as to what Colton Joseph is going to be at Wisconsin because I don't know what's going on with Wisconsin next year. I really don't. I don't know what to make of the roster. I don't know what to make of where they fit in the Big Ten. Schedule is like pretty workable next year. You open with Notre Dame, but like there's no Ohio State on the schedule, no Oregon on the schedule. So in that way, you're not in the worst position in the world. Here's all I want to say. I think Colton Joseph can really play. What that means for Wisconsin when it comes to their win-loss numbers next year, I don't know. But I think Colton Joseph, at the very least, gives you an upgrade and gives you a chance. I think that's all you're asking for after a 4-win season out there at Camp Randall. Now, Louisville, they also got a quarterback addition. Lincoln Kienholz, backup quarterback at Ohio State last season. Going to be the guy you'd have to believe in Louisville next season. This is one of the sneakiest ads, I think, of this entire transfer portal cycle. I'll say this. Coming out of high school, our team here at On 3 loved Lincoln Kienholz. I think the fact that he wanted to go to Ohio State, period, speaks to his competitive nature. He sees Julian Sain starting as a redshirt freshman. He understands if he wants to play, he's got to go somewhere else, so no shade there. I think this is probably the most freakishly athletic quarterback that Jeff Brom's had since getting to Louisville. And you take the raw skill set of Kienholz and pair him with the quarterback Gru and Jeff Brom. I'm just saying it could be kismet. Could be a very, very good thing. Also, Isaac Brown, not relating to big portal commits, but I guess a big portal recommitment, looked like he was going to jump into the portal. We were all watching Texas and saying, oh, good get for the Longhorns if that happens. Not so fast, my friend. Reverse Uno card from the folks out there in Louisville. And going to have Lincoln Kienholz, and by the looks of it now, Isaac Brown in that backfield together next season. And a very winnable ACC, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens there, but vibes should be high in the 502. Now, finish up here. Byron Brown. Remember him, USF quarterback last year? He has committed to Auburn. So the folks on the Plains now, you got your QB1 for next year. This is not a surprise. This was pretty much we were all tracking / predicting as soon as Alex Golesh took that job on the Plains, and even further so when Byron Brown announced his intentions to jump into the transfer portal. Similar to the Penn State situation with Matt Campbell and Rocco Becht, you get two things here with Byron Brown. One, offensive insurance. You know the guy running your system is a guy who's done it before at a high level, 3,000 yards passing, 1,000 yard rushing last season for USF, and you trust him to set that temperature in your locker room. Okay, Byron Brown, fifth-year guy. He knows Alex Golesh's standards. He knows what he's about. He knows what he wants when it comes to a leadership kind of thing. Byron Brown is now your lead dog, if you will, when it comes to what's going on out there on the Plains. So if you have success this year, a big part of it will be Byron Brown and that offense and how they do things. And I think with bringing in Byron Brown on the Plains, my thought process is this is all about resetting where Auburn is in the context of the SEC. Been talented, sure, it's all well and good. But if you have success in year one under Alex Golesh, you prove to the rest of the country. I'm not saying success like go win 10 games. I'm talking like you go win 8, 9 games. It'd be phenomenal. It'd be a great year on the Plains. You win 8 games. You prove to the rest of the country, hey, this is a new Auburn. Last year was last year. The last regime was the last regime. Maybe we didn't win the SEC in year one. I don't think anybody in their right mind is expecting that. But you go set the floor at a new place in year one with Byron Brown helping do that. I think that would present a nice forecast for what Auburn football could be here in the future. So again, lots moving and shaking. There's more commitments coming, maybe even more as I'm speaking to you right now. We're getting more commitments, but those are some of the most noteworthy ones out of the transfer portal as that thing continue to spin and as Pete Nakos continues to, I would imagine now, sleep like 30 minutes a night. God bless him. So make sure you're locked in here. Again, make sure you're subscribed for all things transfer portal, year-round, cycle-round, and beyond into the future. All right, so let's waste no more time, man. It's a Prediction Tuesday. Let's break down these college football playoff semifinal games, starting with none other than the Fiesta Bowl. The first of our 2 playoff games to preview and predict. Thursday, 7:30 Eastern, ESPN, Glendale, Arizona, baby. It's a party, it's a party, it's a party. Fiesta Bowl, man. Miami and Ole Miss. Miami favored by 3.5 points currently over at BetMGM. Listen, we said it in our early thoughts segment as soon as we knew we were getting this matchup. I'll say it again. These two teams are psychopathic. They're crazy. They're out of their mind, but both, I think, crazy in their own way. Miami, they're crazy in the sense that, like whenever you see that guy at the gym that's got 4 plates on the bench, he's dry scooping pre-workout, he's got heavy metal coming out, not out of his earphones, like he's got it just playing out loud out of a JBL for everyone to hear while they're in the gym. Just their own kind of crazy. They want to beat your face in, and they've done that over the course of this playoff. Miami has bent both Texas A&M and Ohio State in those separate games to their will against 2 really elite offenses. Now, can you do it for a third time now with a chance to punch your ticket from Mario Cristobal and the boys for a home national title game? How about, can you imagine for a second if Miami's hosting a national championship game and they said they won college football playoff games on campus? We were part of that saying. You'd get it if Miami wins this game. So that's kind of how psychopathic Miami is. But Ole Miss is psychopathic in a different way, okay? Miami's kind of that more, like I said, heavy metal sort of crazy. Ole Miss is sort of that quiet crazy. Like Ole Miss coming into the college football playoff, you lost your head coach, tough for Ole Miss, great story, great run, best season in Ole Miss history, pat on the head, good for them with the D2 quarterback. Then they show up and they beat Tulane pretty soundly. Okay, cool, awesome, check the box, you were supposed to beat Tulane. But then you go beat Georgia. After losing to Georgia for the first time in Athens and talking your stuff afterwards saying we're so close, we think we should have won that game, this, that, and the other internally, I'm sure is what being said. However, though, to flip the script and then to go give Georgia 30-plus again, have Trinidad Chambliss go out of his mind, they are a quiet craze in the sense that they're sort of unassuming in some respects. They're kind of this school teacher vibe to them where they're just good-hearted, good-natured, fun story, fun to root for if you're not Lane Kiffin or not rooting for Lane Kiffin in itself. But on the side now, they got some contract killer to them, okay? Ole Miss is a hired gun, but you wouldn't know it until you lock the gates. You got to go 4 quarters with the reps. One more thing I want to say on Ole Miss before we move on to the actual breakdown of this game. I don't care about the Lane Kiffin thing anymore. I don't. I think Trinidad Chambliss, and as well as he played against Georgia the second time, no further questions, Your Honor. Like, maybe you use the Lane Kiffin thing as fuel, but I don't have any questions about the schematics or the approach game plan-wise offensively for Ole Miss. They are that team. They've earned their way to this spot, and this game is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Both these teams have like an ultimate house money vibe to them. Miami gets into the college football playoff with a last-second switcheroo from the playoff committee, and then Ole Miss, again, you lost your head coach. Nobody thought you'd be in the spot and beat Georgia, and yet here we are a game away from playing for a national championship if we are in Oxford. Make sure you're subscribed. Okay, it's college football, nothing but college football. Yeah, it's the college football playoff. We are going to be at the national title game. So whether you're an Ole Miss fan making the trip out there, a Miami fan staying home and making the trip to that stadium, we will be in attendance for this game. We love college football. You love college football. We appreciate you in advance for being subscribed. The game flow of this thing is everything to me. It's everything. Like, it's very obvious. Ole Miss, the more points you score, the more you push Miami into a type of game they don't want to play. If Ole Miss scores in the 30s, advantage Ole Miss every single time. Right? Make no mistake about it. Now, it should be said, too, Ole Miss hasn't scored less than 30 points since October 11th. Right? On the flip side of that, Miami hasn't allowed 30 points at all this year. So, rock, meet, hard place. What happens there? Again, if it's in the 30s, Ole Miss should feel pretty good about their chances to win this game. If this game is played in the teens now, Miami is saying, here we go. Meet you in the phone booth. We'll throw haymakers for a few quarters here. We like Ruben Bain. We like Mesidor. We like Mawanoa. We like Mark Fletcher. We'll go ahead and live that way, and we'll feel just fine scoring 17 points and winning the football game. So game flow here is going to be huge. Now, what dictates game flow in this spot? The first thing that I cannot wait to see, I mean, you might as well put like cinematic music behind it, the score to Star Wars behind it, Trinidad Magic out of structure against that front of Miami. I cannot wait for this. Just picture this. Trinidad Chambliss drops back. Right away, Bain gets through. Chambliss escapes, breaks contain, eyes downfield, stop it right there. Whatever happens here, whether it's Bain gets after Trinidad Chambliss and forces an errant throw, maybe gets him down on the ground for a sack, or Trinidad Chambliss does what he did against Georgia, where he reverses field, throws a dart downfield, gets Keywan Lacey in the game a little bit here as an outlet. Like, whatever happens in those competitive play moments, that's going to go a very long way in determining who wins this football game. Miami's got 12 sacks in 2 college football playoff games. Like, they have made they've made their way to this game by hunting the quarterback. Now, Trinidad Chambliss, I think, brings a different level of mobility plus arm talent that Miami hasn't seen to this point in the playoff. So the way that whole thing goes is going to be huge, but not just the who wins between the front of Mesidor and Bain versus Chambliss off structure. Check out what's downstream of that. I mentioned Keywan Lacey being involved in the passing game here, both as an outlet when Miami gets pressure, and they will get pressure. It's what they've done all year long, and Ole Miss didn't do anything to inspire confidence in the offensive line department here against Georgia. I digress. Keywan Lacey as an outlet in the pass game, also as a pass protector. Like, make no mistake, Keywan Lacey going to have to catch a body or two in this game to allow Trinidad Chambliss to involve these wide receivers, okay? So that's downstream of Trinidad Chambliss off structure. On the flip side of that, Miami, what you have behind your front seven is going to be huge. Y'all know, if you've watched this show, we are first-team all-Keontae Scott Stans, the safety for Miami. I keep saying this. Reminds me of a young Caden Smith, where he played the game. Runs the alley, not afraid to get his nose in there. He is in the top tier of all of college football when it comes to tackles from a defensive back at the Power 4 level. What does that tell you? What I just said, he's aggressive. So if you do find yourself in a situation where it's checked down to Keywan Lacey because we got so much pressure, Keontae Scott is going to have a lot on his plate when it comes to cleaning those kinds of plays up. Because if Keywan Lacey gets that check down, makes someone miss in the open field, if we're not able to get him on the ground with that first defender, ideally here to Keontae Scott, it's going to be a very high heart rate kind of game for the folks out there in Coral Gables, because he's going to break one. It's going to be a first down and then some. Maybe it's a touchdown. I don't know. And then you put the ball in Carson Beck's hands and say, hey, you know how we had this whole conversation before the week? We want you to throw it 20, 22 times, manage the game, be efficient with your legs, just make the right play on third down, scratch all that. We need you to go for like 250, a couple touchdowns today, because they're scoring points, Carson. We need you, buddy. Go make your $4 million, whatever it is that we're paying you. That's going to be very, very crucial here and dictating the game flow. Now, going back to, the other pieces that will dictate pace in this game, the wide receivers for Ole Miss have got to win against Miami secondary. Have got to. Like, you watched that Georgia game, Trinidad Chambliss was unconscious, but a big reason why he was able to be unconscious was because Ole Miss on the perimeter kept winning. Whether it was Stribling, whether it was Wallace, they found ways to consistently win against that Georgia secondary. And it wasn't just the vertical presence that was a big part of it, but you also saw Ole Miss, they did this all year long, quite frankly. If you give their wide receivers a cushion, you will regret it at some point in time throughout this game. So you're kind of rock meets hard place there as well, because you're saying, well, we can't just play them super tight the entirety of the game. Trinidad Chambliss, I think, is one of the best deep ball throwers in all of college football, period, much less in this playoff right now. So how do we live in this in-between where we're playing them tight enough so we're not just surrendering yak opportunities right off the bat, but we're also not, giving them so much of a head start to where they can just check right off the bat and they get a deep ball throw. So that whole pre-snap game is going to be a lot of fun to watch. But if Ole Miss is winning after the catch and Miami's giving them that cushion, again, that's where the pace starts to get a little bit more in advantage with Ole Miss. The running game for Miami here is going to be huge. I mean, that's pretty much the most obvious statement we could say. Mark Fletcher has been an absolute wagon in this playoff, dude, running back for Miami. He's averaging 7 yards a carry through 2 games. He averaged 5 yards a carry against Ohio State. Feed the freaking beast. I said it during the preview for Ohio State and Miami. The guy's got the hot hand right now. As a running back, feeling like you have some momentum behind you, those holes looking bigger, the game's happening slower for you, you feel a little bit more strong behind your pads, all those things, kind of like a three-point shooter in college basketball or basketball in general. You get some momentum, you're playing at a different level. And I think that's Mark Fletcher right now with how he runs the football. So we keep talking about the way this game could go and the flow of things. If Miami's able to do what they did these first 2 games and just turn around, hand it to 4, tick, 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 time off the clock, time possession favoring Miami. Hey, Trinidad, we appreciate your story. We appreciate all you've done for college football to this point. However, you're going to have to go ahead and grab that iPad and watch your previous series a few more times, because you're not getting on the field here for a little bit, brother. Like, we're going to control the line of scrimmage. There's nothing you can do about it. If that's the way that Miami lives, again, advantage Miami in every single sense of the word. Now, I said the same thing about the Ole Miss defense against Georgia when it came to questioning their ability to stop the run. And in some respects, I feel like we were right. Like, Georgia still had over 100 yards on the ground. Like, Georgia still had a very good day at the office when it came to running the football. However, Ole Miss was timely enough and got key stops and third down to force field goal attempts and field goals in general. I don't really know what to make of the Ole Miss defense right now. Because, again, in my mind's eye, and just as I talk this through logically, the way that they are structured defensively and what they've done over the course of this year defensively, quite frankly, I don't have a lot of confidence they're going to stop the run. I said that against Georgia, though, as well, and they won the football game. So it's kind of like crock pot barbecue. You're like, I guess it works scientifically. I guess I trust it because, you wait however many hours and you get halfway decent barbecue. But it's not really the conventional way that I would prefer this to be prepared. So the crock pot defense for Ole Miss against Miami's run game here is going to tell us a lot. And I think your pick in this game really goes to how much you trust Miami to run the football and how much you trust Ole Miss to be timely defensively. Yet again, those 3 down linemen, again, it makes me nervous, but it made me nervous against Georgia, and that was kind of how this whole thing went. So the running game for Miami is going to be really important in terms of setting up third down for Miami as an offense. Again, going back to time possession, flow of the game, Miami controlled that game against Ohio State because they were living in 3rd and 3 or less. Of the 14 third down positions that Miami had as an offense, 9 of them were 3rd and 3 or less. What does that tell you? Whole playbook is open. We can give it to 4 and let him keep pounding the rock. You know what Miami did a lot, though? I think Shannon Dawson deserves a lot of credit for this. When Miami got man coverage, especially on 3rd and short, which is typically a man coverage down and distance because you're trying to protect the sticks, they did a phenomenal job throwing the football and finding their matchups. This is where Malachi Toney, I think, can be an absolute menace for you. You set up that same kind of down and distance, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, whatever it is, and you elect to throw the football. I think Malachi Toney is going to win every single man-to-man matchup he gets against Ole Miss. So whether it's the screen game, which Miami has lived in as well, like 20% of the time they're in a screen sort of format as an offense, or whether it's just straight-up man concept. We'll go ahead and just beat you to the outside with your leverage. We're great with that. Malachi Toney, first down. Clock keeps running. Fresh set of downs. Carson Beck, way to manage the football game. That's something that's really important to watch here. Now, the sneaky takes within this game is important to mention as well. I think Carson Beck, the way he's being talked about is a touch disrespectful to like his overall ability. I think what they've done over the course of this playoff has said more about the strengths of Miami and their line of scrimmage than it should say about Carson Beck. Like, I don't think you want to live in a world where Carson Beck is throwing the football for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, because that probably means you're chasing points. But make no mistake, you're at 3rd and 7 here. Carson Beck can make the throws to win this football game. Like, I think we all forget what he was when he was coming back to Georgia for that 2024 season. It's like, hey, he's going to be the number 1 pick. He's going to be the Heisman Trophy winner, all these things. And then the year went how it went, and there's more context to that. But just don't talk yourself into this world where you're saying, hey, Carson Beck, he's not good enough to win the game for Miami. I promised you he is. You don't want to live that way, but I promised you he is. In the same way, we keep talking about Miami's aggression as a defense. That could be a huge advantage here for Ole Miss if they're able to catch the cadence of Miami's pressure. I keep saying this. 2nd and 3rd level for Miami. They'll have to fly downhill, create something in the backfield. Like, they are big on creating negative plays as a defense. And that's great so long as the Ole Miss offense doesn't have a certain beat on how you're bringing pressure and know what you're bringing at different levels. And if Charlie Weiss's answer is, okay, here we go now. Because pressure is great so long as you get home. If you don't get home, guess what? Whole lot of green grass in Glendale, Arizona behind your pressure. And Ole Miss has proven, if anything, they are explosive as all get out. So those two things need to be mentioned. Probably not like the key storylines you're looking at off top, but Carson Beck, his ability to make throws, good enough to win the game, I promised you. And then also the Ole Miss offense. We keep talking about like how strong Miami is up front, and they definitely are. But if you can get behind them with those aggressive plays from the Miami defense, just keep a pulse on that, because that could be huge in how this whole thing shakes out. All right, so what's the pick, JD? Give me the preview. You broke this whole thing down. Who you picking in this game? Listen, I do not feel good about how that Georgia game went. I don't. Because I kept looking at what Georgia did well, and it's the same things Miami does well. Line of scrimmage, run game. Heck, I like the quarterback play for Georgia in that game. I don't like the quarterback play nearly as much for Miami against Trinidad Chambliss. And I cannot shake this feeling that Trinidad Magic may just be in play again here. It's the Fiesta Bowl. We may see some Pico de Gallo dealed out here by Trinidad Chambliss, just out here mixing them up, all right? That's very much so in play, and I think that may just happen. With that being said, I think Miami's the tougher football team. I think Miami on the line of scrimmage has been arguably the toughest team in this entire college football playoff, not named Indiana. And so you get to the semifinal game, and you look at what history says about just college football in general, the toughest team usually now at least wins or plays for a national championship. And so while Trinidad may just take over, and I may end up once again in the cinematic recap picking against Ole Miss, and if that's what happens, ball up top, I can't live with myself not picking the team that I believe is more physical up front. I can't get out of my mind's eye, the Trinidad Chambliss off-structure stuff, but you go back and watch some of those off-structure plays. There's like 3 Georgia defensive linemen after 1 Mississippi in Trinidad Chambliss's lap, and Trinidad Chambliss just puts on the Superman cape and makes a play. So if we're wrong, it's going to be because Trinidad Chambliss does that again. And if he does that, I mean, hat tip. I'll take Miami to win. I'll take Ole Miss to cover. Final score in Glendale. Absolute barn burner, instant classic kind of stuff. The Canes get it done in the desert, 24-21, and advance to a national championship at their home stadium. How about that? So the Canes win the Fiesta Bowl, set themselves up to play for a national title, man. How about that? How about that? I cannot wait for that one, man. It's going to be absolutely electrifying. Now, next game on deck, you got the Thursday Fiesta Bowl. On Friday, guess what? You got yourself the Peach Bowl, baby. 7:30 Eastern, ESPN, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Don't look now. Your boys going to be on hand for this one, all right? We said, hey, Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza running it back in a QB duel. We got to watch this one. Plus, it's the BetMGM game of the week. Are you kidding yourself? We're going to be there. Going to be awesome. Oregon, Indiana, round 2. The mental game for this one is going to be huge. Think about it this way. This is, I think, the first time in 2 years where Dan Lanning can legitimately approach his team in the team room and say, hey, listen, y'all are the underdog. You're always trying to pitch that to your football team and trying to, forecast this idea of nobody thinks you can win the game. You got a chip on your shoulder. Like, that might actually be how this week trends for Oregon. I just watched Indiana absolutely do whatever they wanted to Alabama, one of the premier brands in the sport. And Oregon, they played well against Texas Tech, but it wasn't quite as impressive as what Indiana did. And so you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, how much does that play into favor for Dan Lanning? Because I think we said it many times during the offseason, he's one of the best communicators and psychologists in all of college football. Getting his team ready to play and giving them a different message, whether it's real or not, to get them ready to play. He's one of the best in the game at it. So I promise you, we'll get an electric pregame speech from Dan Lanning that I'm sure will get leaked on social media, and it'll be a really good time. But how much does the true underdog angle play into effect here when you're trying to go beat a team that beats you once by 10 points at your place? On the flip side, Indiana, they are absolutely the front runner. Now, I think if you don't think Indiana's the front runner to win the national championship, you're not watching college football. Here's the thing, though. Curt Cignetti had, give or take, 26 days to tell his team, like, hey, you haven't done anything yet. He talked about just how intense he got with them at practice and the way that he laid into them and just tried to root out complacency. He had 26 days to brainwash that football team. Not the case anymore. He had from New Year's Day to this upcoming Friday to get his team reprogrammed. So the curious part about the mental game for me here with Curt Cignetti in Indiana, I don't question Curt Cignetti's ability to coach his football team and set the temperature to a certain spot. I'm curious how much they believe that Alabama game is indicative of who they are. Because the Bama game was nice. Y'all, we were saying somewhat quietly off the air over here, hey, listen, Indiana, they may drag Alabama. It took Indiana to win and cover in that game. But even with that being said, Alabama almost had that done to them by Oklahoma in the first half. Okay, so I'm not taking anything away from Indiana. I'm just saying if you believe that you are that much better than Alabama and Bama is, this team that was playing their best ball at the right time, just really interested to see how much Kool-Aid we're drinking of ourselves for the Hoosiers walking into this spot. Now, I said it in early previews too. I think that these rosters are really pretty evenly matched across the board in a lot of ways. I think there's a very slight edge for both sides in different categories. I think Indiana probably has the edge when it comes to the trenches. Oregon has good trench players, but I look at what Indiana did that first time around, sacking Dante Moore 6 times, dude. The way they imposed their will running the football against Alabama. Say what you want about Alabama. Those two backs for Indiana between Hemby and Black, they deserve way more shine than what they've gotten over the course of this playoff and quite frankly over the course of this season. The trenches edge here very slightly goes to Indiana. Now, for Oregon, I think their slight edge actually is on the perimeter. You know what? Oregon believes that's their slight edge. They play man a fair amount of the time. Brandon Finney is playing his best ball. Had a pick 6 the last time they played Indiana. They play a lot of man, and they feed their weapons. That's kind of the thing that Oregon needs to hone in on here. It's not just the fact that Sadiq can get you. It's that Sadiq and Decorian Moore can get you. That Malik Benson's coming into his zone. That you just have all these weapons you go through for Oregon that need to show up in a big way. If the quantity of Oregon's weapons on the perimeter offensively shows up here, Oregon could be in a good spot. So I mentioned those edges to set the table, but also to ask the question, hey, what if we get to this game in Atlanta, and Cato and I are on hand for this one, watching it go down, and we say, hey, actually, I know that Indiana doesn't have Daly. And right now, sitting here on a Monday morning, you're like, maybe that's going to hurt them. And maybe it will. But also, what if the edge in the trenches for Indiana is actually more than just slight? Like, what if those 6 sacks they had the first time around against that Oregon offense, what if that was just the tip of the iceberg? And they get after Dante Moore yet again, having a blender yet again. And then the way they ran the football against Alabama wasn't just, hey, Bama's not great on the run side of things, defending that, as a defense. What if that's just, no, Indiana is really that much better than everybody else on the line of scrimmage. On the flip side for Oregon, I think that the way that they played man coverage against Indiana last time and kind of took their lumps, I think they've progressed since then. What if they end up winning more than their fair share battles competitively on the perimeter against Indiana defensively? What if Kenyon Sadiq really does not have a matchup answer? Decorian Moore is more of himself in this spot. And they start to press and score points, and Indiana's chasing as opposed to that first round. Just curious to see. So even with that being the case of the slight edges, I do think that ultimately we'll see ourselves in a matchup wash of sorts here. I think the quarterbacks is going to be who determines this football game. Not shocking. It's what we're signed up for, quite frankly, having these two guys being battling for QB1. Dante Moore and his progress versus elite pass rushes and not taking the bait and pressing and having just stupid mistakes against Texas Tech for the most part, that I think is really, really telling. Because that was what got Oregon in trouble the first time they played Indiana. Dante Moore gets sped up, and he ends up making his second interception was to lose the football game. His first interception was off of a tip pass and ended up being a big part of that football game. I want to say this. Dante Moore and what you saw that first round against Indiana is different than what you're going to see this game in the semis against Indiana. Last time Dante Moore was, I think, still very much so in the womb in this offense. All right, been in the system for a year, but when he got to that game against Indiana, still only a few starts under his belt. Dante Moore now is no longer in the womb as a quarterback in the system. He is off the placenta, baby. He's out here walking around, making checks. Again, has his answers versus zone coverage. Like, what I saw against Texas Tech told me a lot about how far along he is relative to that first time. Now, is what I'm saying a factual statement? Is it just like, hey, Texas Tech, they were great up front, but they didn't have the dudes on the back end, whereas Indiana, Pons, and the rest of that secondary will have something to say about it? Okay, we'll see. We'll see. But that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch here. Is Dante Moore truly as far along as I believe he is against the pass rush? Because if he is, we're going to see Oregon really force the issue offensively, and Fernando Mendoza and company will have to match. Now, in a similar vein, I think the way to beat Fernando Mendoza, and the thing to track here with him, is pressure up the middle. This is very feast or famine here for Oregon. Because you go back and watch that first game, as your boy did last night, and Fernando Mendoza, the pick six that he threw was off the back foot, man coverage on the back end for Oregon. He just kind of left it hanging a little bit. Didn't get his full, motion into it. Didn't get his hips through it. Just left the ball hanging up there. Finney picks it off, goes back for 6. Now, that was nice for Oregon, obviously, but you go back to the Alabama game in the Rose Bowl and Mendoza shredded the blitz. He was 8 for 8, 3 touchdowns against the Bama blitz. That's not a great thing to have going for you if you're the Oregon defense walking into the spot where you're trying to punch a ticket to the college football playoff. So I say that for Oregon. I don't love the idea of just sitting back and playing honest against this group of receivers in our secondary and letting Fernando Mendoza just kind of play 7-on-7. If you give Fernando Mendoza time, he will pick you apart. And so I think you kind of got to risk it for the biscuit here, Tosh Lapoy and the boys out there for the Oregon defense. I think you got to find a way to mix up the picture, bring pressure up the middle, let Fernando Mendoza not get his feet totally set, and let your guys play on the back end. And if you really think you're better on the back end, like I do, the game will bounce a certain way, is I think how you have to angle yourself coming into this spot. Now, who's got the better curveball schematically? Both these coaches, in Lanning and Cignetti, they are prize fighters. If you want to walk into the second fight against the other and go with the exact same fight plan, guess what? You're going to get knocked out. It is going to be Tweety birds and stars laying on the canvas. It's not going to be a good deal. You cannot go with the same game plan and say, well, if we just execute better, we'll be in a better spot. I promise you it's not going to be good enough. So that's interesting in the second matchup of this game with these teams already playing before in the regular season. But the extra layer of who knows what's going to happen who knows what's going to happen frosting on top of this cake, is you got portal madness going on right now. And everyone, myself included, talking about what Kurt Cignetti and the guys are doing via the portal. Landed Nick Marsh, the freak show receiver from Michigan State. Landed Josh Hoover from TCU. They had to put in some hours, I have to believe, to get those dudes to commit. Those are hours. Kurt Cignetti said it during a teleconference, I believe, with the media. Hey, we had to cut our Oregon prep short today because I'm trying to get my team ready for next year using the portal. And Lanning's like, hey, coach, go ahead and focus on those portal guys. Don't worry about us. All in good fun. Now, on the flip side for Oregon, they're trying to do the same thing. However, you got 2 coordinators for Oregon that are taking head coaching jobs next year. Tosh Lapoy going to be the head coach at Cal next year. Will Stein going to be the head coach at Kentucky next year. They're working the portal as head coaches for other teams. So, yes, you got to have a different game plan, but I have to believe now the calendar and the madness and stupidity of it, how much does that impact these teams heading into this game? Because Cignetti's talking about, hey, we have to take some time on our prep for Oregon. His coordinators aren't taking head coaching jobs next year. If Cignetti's on the portal side of things, his coordinators are able to, I think, kind of backfill whatever he's missing and maybe have a little bit more gathered together plan of attack when it comes to prepping for this game. So that's sort of the unknowable when it comes to how these coaches are spending their time and the impact of it. But just something to keep an eye on here when it comes to the game plan, who's able to deliver a different pitch in this spot, which, again, you're going to have to do in a rematch kind of setting with 2 elite rosters and elite head coaches. This game, I think, is really going to resemble a lot of what you see when you watch an NFL game. Both lines of scrimmage are solid. That's not going to be a massive advantage, I don't think, for either side. Both perimeters, while I said the slight edge for Oregon, I mean, D'Angelo Pons is a dog out there for Indiana. Indiana's not wanting anything in the secondary or at the receiver position with Surratt and Cooper. Like, I mean, Charlie B from Nashville, Tennessee, shout out Gus Johnson. Like, there's no real definitive, I don't think, like this game's going to get blown open angle for either side of this, barring something wildly unforeseen. So you think about it that way, what is usually the difference maker in NFL games? Quarterback play, for sure. We mentioned that already. I think it comes down to competitive plays. And competitive plays are tough to predict because it's like ball is in the air, Elijah Surratt, Brandon Finney, 50-50, front pylon of the end zone, who comes down with it? Like, it's hard for me to predict in that moment what happens because it's going to be, I think, a thing where these teams sort of trade haymakers and trade wins in that department. And it's a tough thing to predict. So with that being the case, I look at Mendoza and what he's done to this point in the year, and I'm like, that guy's a freaking accountant back there. Doesn't make mistakes, always on schedule, always on time, no rounding errors. Like, he's as dialed in as it possibly can get for a college quarterback. But I've said now for the better part of the last several weeks, hey, if it's me picking a quarterback, I love Mendoza. You can't say he's not the best quarterback in college football because he won the Heisman Trophy. But in this spot with a 4-quarter game, I think Dante Moore and his progress is being massively slept on. I think that Oregon in this spot, too, with Dan Lanning, the fixer, I think that's being massively slept on. Dan Lanning has gotten to spots like this and not had the answers. Like, I think back to his games against Kalen DeBoer, where he loses the first matchup in Seattle, and then you're looking at the Pac-12 title game with Oregon having a lot to play for, obviously, in front of them, and Kalen DeBoer and the guys at Washington having a dream season. You're like, okay, second time he's going to get him, and he didn't. I cannot shake this feeling that his second try at a rematch here for Dan Lanning, after he lost the first one, I think he's going to get it right. I think the fact they're an underdog is going to be a really, really big part of their week of preparation. So with that all being the case, I'll take the quarterback that I like more. I'll take the spot that I get more excited about for Oregon. I love Indiana. I just think that Bama game, maybe, just maybe, flying a little close to the sun. Maybe we feel a little bit of an exhale. I don't know, but I think it's close. I think it's just another instant classic. I think both these playoff games are phenomenal. I'll take Oregon, the underdog in this game, to win. Final score, Ducks 20, Indiana 17. Indiana favored by 4 in this game. So Oregon ends up winning by 3. Forget the spread. Oregon wins. Oregon covers. And the Ducks advance to the national championship game in Miami with myself and Caden Smith in attendance. So you look at this playoff field, and I think what we've learned from this year and also last year in the 12-team playoff with 2 years of data on kind of this new college football we're living in, the transfer portal is not optional. It's not extra credit. It's not something that you can just, do on the side as a project in addition to your recruiting and kind of have be the cherry on top. You don't have to major in the transfer portal, but you can't minor in the transfer portal. You can't just ignore the transfer portal. And I think where we are right now in college football is screaming that from the mountaintops. Go ahead and check out these numbers. 3 of the top 4 teams right now in this college football playoff, 3 of the final 4 teams, I should say, had top 5 portal classes a year ago. I mean, all of these teams in the Final Four had top 15 classes. Indiana checked in at 13. 4 of these teams, all 4 of them, have what? A transfer portal quarterback. 6 of these teams in the college football playoff, of the 12, had a portal quarterback. 7, you want to count Julian Sand. Last year, guess what? Same deal. 6 teams of the 12 had a transfer portal quarterback. 8 of these teams that made the playoff had a top 30 portal class. So you see where I'm going with this. You catch my trend here. If you want to win at the highest level, you cannot afford to not use the transfer portal. Here's the thing. If you're not going to use the portal, it'll be used against you. And that's kind of one of the biggest gripes we've had with Dabo Swinney over the course of, the portal's existence, is like, hey, you could probably go out there and get a piece or two, a piece on offense, and maybe a big play wide receiver, if you will, and change the trajectory of what your team could accomplish here over the course of the next few seasons if you would just be willing to at least participate. Again, not asking to major in it, but you just participate in the transfer portal. Good things can and would happen. And I think there's a very obvious shift, too, in how you put together a roster. When NIL became a reality, we said it many times on this show, how much a fan base cares, how much your boosters care, and are willing to allocate towards a roster has never been more directly correlated to what you can accomplish on a football field. Like Texas Tech is a great example. Last year, just pretty much decide, hey, we're going to make sure we go ahead and buy ourselves the best roster money can buy. Now, you got to make it go together, too, and we'll get to that in a second. But we are not going to settle for having the second best roster on any field we step on within the confines of the Big 12. So Cody Campbell goes to work. You go out and get a David Bailey, a Romello Heights, so on and so forth in terms of the number of just key pieces they got, especially in that front seven. And that changed the entire trajectory of what Texas Tech football is. How much you care at a fan base level and a booster level can now directly impact the number of wins you have on the field. So to go back to what I was saying here in terms of like care factor, that is now a non-negotiable when it comes to how you attack the transfer portal. Ole Miss, another great example. Like, say what you want about Lane Kiffin, the dude went to work in the portal every single year, and Ole Miss right now is reaping the rewards of it. Okay, so you got to be willing to commit resources to go acquire top talent via the portal, both quantity and quality. Make no mistake about it. In the exact same breath, though, if you're going to care about the transfer portal, you better care just as much about the people putting that portal class together. All right, like when you look at the way some of these teams have been put together over the course of this past calendar year, and teams that are still standing in this college football playoff, what is one thing they all have in common they've knocked out of the park? The eval game. Like, you better be willing to invest in your front office in modern college football right now. You better be willing to go get an elite GM like Oregon has in Marshall Malco. Like, you better be on your P's and Q's when it comes to finding your guys that fit your system that you believe you can get more out of than where they were at previously. Indiana, another great example. Fernando Mendoza. At Cal, his best year there, 16 touchdowns, 6 picks. Goes to Indiana, wins the Heisman Trophy. A lot of that is how Kurt Signetti and that offensive staff were able to squeeze more out of him. 1,000% true. At the exact same time, though, the ability to evaluate Fernando Mendoza and look at his skill set and say, you know what? We see things he's not capitalizing on. We see things he's not maximizing on. Let's bring him in. We'll have success. Miami, another great example. They knew they had to get better on the back end. We had Mario Cristobal on the freaking show a year ago, and he's like, we got exposed on the back end, man. Secondary was nowhere near where it needed to be. So what did they do? Go to the portal in the secondary, and they had success the year. At a massive level, they've had success this year in that group. That wasn't a thing that they just went out and threw bodies at. Said, okay, just get a bunch of volume and throw them in there and we'll see what happens. Yes, you want to add depth. Yes, you want to make sure you add volume. But at the exact same time, like, Miami has to feel like they hit at a pretty high level when it came to their evals with these guys. So who's making the evals? The people that hopefully you're paying a pretty penny to keep in your building to go do their job at the highest level. It's no longer good enough to just recruit the high school level and say that'll be it. You got to do that for sure. But if you ignore the transfer portal, again, you will get passed. There's no way around that. You will get passed. So while it's non-negotiable to use the transfer portal, I think it also has to be said that it's not the only thing. And an opinion I've had here for some time is, as modern college football changes and evolves and we get the portal and we get NIL, we get the expanded playoff, it is, I think, increasingly important to stick to the things in old college football that have allowed you to be successful at every given, championship stop, if you will, which is what? Culture, which is team building, which is a coach who's able to, again, get the most out of his players and maximize them in that regard. And I think that also has to be mentioned here. Like, we've seen teams crush it in, different recruiting rankings or transfer portal rankings. And then you look at them at the end of the year and you're like, why did that not come together well? LSU, a great example. Top 2 portal class. Tons of talent. Committed the resources. Did all the right things. I think they have a tremendous GM at that point in time who brought him in, and Austin Thomas, who's now since left for Ole Miss. Why did it not come together the right way? I know it's popular to dunk on Brian Kelly here, but hindsight's 2020. I don't think he did a great job bringing that talent and making it from a roster to a team. The teams that are succeeding at the highest level right now are not just a bunch of talented individuals all running roughshod. They're actually able to be a unit that plays well together. Look at Oregon, another great example of this. Bear Alexander, let's call a spade here. He has been a college football journeyman. Super talented, massively talented, but for different reasons that may or may not be specific to football. Doesn't work out at Georgia, doesn't work out at USC. And there were different narratives that would follow Bear Alexander over the course of his career. So he gets to Oregon. It's his 3rd stop. And the thought is, hey, are we sure this guy's a culture fit? At least that was my thought, at least coming in, because I'm like, I don't know. He transfers a lot. You hear different things about the guy. Like, I root for him openly, massively talented, but like, I don't know how excited I get about this. Dan Lanning brings him in, and he's balling right now for Oregon. Massive part of what they do on the line of scrimmage defensively. That's not a coincidence that he gets to Oregon and has success under that new staff. Again, that's culture, that's expectations, that's standards, that's all the coaching cliches that you hear ad nauseum, but they actually matter, especially when it comes to bringing in new pieces to your football team. Like, if you don't have a team culture and a team way of doing things that's going to bring in transfers and allow them to meet your level of expectations and meet your way of doing things, it's not going to be successful. It's not. Kyle Whittingham wasn't speaking of the transfer portal, but he mentioned this during his opening press conference for Michigan. I thought it was really revealing, if you will. We're not here as a coaching staff to meet you. You're here as a team to meet where we're at. You become us, we don't become you, is I think exactly how he phrased it. And I think that's the same thing you're seeing here across these four teams in the college football playoff, the Final Four. They all have a very clear way of doing things. We talk about Miami and the way they've, I think, in some ways elevated Carson Beck and improved his football image, if you will. You want to talk about Indiana and Mendoza, who I spoke to, going from 16 touchdown passes a year ago at Cal to 36 this season. The proof is in the pudding, man. The proof is in the pudding. You go down the line here with Oregon and Ole Miss as well, but I think as long as you have a structure in place culturally to receive these transfers and elevate them, that's the other key ingredient. So there's a lot of different pillars to it. It's evals, it's commitment from resources at a roster level and a personnel level, and also it's having the right things in place to when you get those transfers, you elevate them and they become part of your system, and they don't dictate the system that you have and change that. So transfer portal, again, not optional. Got to do it. You want it at the highest level. The portal is now a key piece of that pie. So we talked a lot this offseason about Arch-Mania and what he was going to be. And the start for Arch-Mania to 2025 was one that I think he'd probably like to forget. You got the Ohio State game where he's just dirting the football with open receivers downfield. You had games early on against lesser competition where he's getting booed. There was people, irrationally so, and very, I think, disingenuously so, but writing articles saying is Arch-Mania college football's first big flop, which, again, we just shot that out of the water as soon as we saw it. But I think that where we are right now with Arch-Mania and the way that he played and finished the season, we need to revisit the discussion around Arch-Mania, because preseason he was, I think, arguably the biggest story in college football, if not the biggest story in sports leading into the season. The come up for Arch-Mania is peculiar because everything on paper suggests that he's going to be a success from day one. Maybe not everything on paper, but a lot of the narratives plus some of the stuff you had on paper suggests he'd be a guy from day one. The last name Manning, he got to sit in Sark's system for a while. Sark is this offensive mastermind. On paper, you're like, well, hey, Texas, they didn't go to the portal and add a bunch of weapons, so they must feel pretty good about their weapons, right? Like, Steve Sarkisian knows offensive football at the highest level. If he's not going out and retooling the offensive line or getting a bunch of new skill players, they must like what they have. All things that I think were fair. But I think the thing with Arch-Mania that, I mean, hand up, I think we looked past a little bit too quickly, is the value that is within having actual in-game reps. Like, I think Arch-Mania is the straight-A student that graduated cum laude, whatever, valedictorian, however you want to phrase it, and then he gets to his first real job, and it's like, oh, this is different. This isn't the classroom anymore. People skills are more required. This is harder than I thought it would be. It's very different to go from classroom to real world. And I think that's kind of where Arch-Mania was at. Classroom, he's like this prodigy, right? He's a 5-star. He's this, he's that when it comes to prospect ranking. He's the next great thing. And it's like you do all these things behind closed doors for a certain amount of time. That's good. I love that you have all these honors classes under your belt. However, it doesn't help you your first day on the job, and I give you your first project to do. It's not going to help you all that much. The only way to learn is by doing. And so I think that probably for us, at least on this side of things, got looked past a little bit too much. But I do want to make sure we say this with how we finished the season. It should excite you, the strong finish, because it showed you what you thought about him in the preseason wasn't all that off base in terms of what he could accomplish. But I want to pat ourselves on the back here a little bit. Next year was always going to be the year for Arch-Mania. I think anybody that covers this sport at a serious level knew that. He's not going pro. He's not going pro this year. He's probably going to be a next year kind of guy. He needs to get more reps, probably the Manning camp kind of thing. And we knew that next year was going to be where you saw his best. All right. I think a lot of people are very quick, though, to say, well, JD, yeah, it's cool. We finished the year strong. They won the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, whatever they're calling it now, and beat Michigan. Awesome. But he was supposed to win the Heisman. He was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick if he wanted to go. What happened to all that? And what I say to that is what I've said the entirety of this entire year and this past offseason. Who said Arch-Mania was going to be the number 1 overall pick? Who said Arch-Mania was going to win the Heisman? Did Arch say that? Did Sark say that? We definitely didn't say that. He wasn't even a Heisman finalist for us on this show. We never were saying any of that. So who was saying that? Well, you know, the odds makers were saying that. Yeah, because they want your money. So they want you to see the last name Manning and jump at it. Well, yeah, but this person said it in media and it was on this magazine because they want to sell magazines. They want to get clicks on their video. They don't really believe that in their heart of hearts. Now, was there a basis to say some of those things loosely and with different caveats? Sure. But anybody that actually had that take on Arch-Mania, who's winning the Heisman Trophy next year, I don't think they were being all that serious. And if they were being serious, they were taking a very big risk in having that take. We always understood it was a thing where Arch-Manning is like, he is what he is from the start. We'll see what he is at the end of the season. I thought he'd start a little bit hotter than he did, but the take was always in November, I think he'll be playing his best football. Why? Because he will have gotten some real reps under his belt. Now, hindsight is 2020. I do think that, like I said, the mental side took a little bit longer to acclimate than we all perceived. I also think that there's a lot of people that midway through the year, as it's kind of becoming popular to dunk on Arch, it's like, hey, we owe Quinn Ewers an apology, huh? Hey, Quinn Ewers, he caught a lot of flack last year, and we didn't know this guy was behind him. He was not any good. That was things people were saying. And I get where that came from, but as the plot played itself out, you look at what Texas had on offense a year ago with Quinn Ewers and 2 years ago with Quinn Ewers. Look at what Texas had this year with Arch-Manning. It is not at all the same thing. Not even at all. The offensive line struggled. I mean, they were middle of the pack when it came to sacks allowed. The running game struggled. Quinn Ewers had a 1,000-yard rusher behind him every single year at Texas. Texas' leading rusher this year had less than 600 yards. I mean, Quinn Ewers had not one but 2 first-round wide receivers he played with, and Matthew Golden and Xavier Worthy. Just for good measure, Adonai Mitchell was also on that squad. That was with Quinn Ewers a couple of years ago. Arch-Manning, I mean, he's got some good receivers. Nobody that's an alpha like that. And so while I get where this is all coming from, I think we need to at least keep the door open for, hey, what could Arch-Manning be if he had better personnel around him? What if he got a first-round wide receiver next to him next year? What would that do for him when Arch-Manning is actually playing at a full peak powers of Arch-Manning and what he's supposed to be? And then he gets more around him. Because you go watch that Cheez-It Bowl, man, there was a lot of drops. And I know it's just a one-game sample size, but you could look over the course of this season for Texas. A couple of games where you're like, man, Arch put it on the numbers, and that was a tough drop. He didn't have much time to begin with, but against Georgia, there was 3 passes that stick out in my mind's eye that were tough drops that maybe would have at least made the numbers look a little bit better. So I understand it's popular to dunk on Arch-Manning. Whether he had success or didn't have success, there was always going to be strong takes. I think when you look at the total body of work, how he finished the year by the numbers needs to get talked about more. He finished top 3 in the SEC in passing touchdowns, y'all. Do we understand that? More than Marcel Reed, more than Joey Aguilar, more than Gunnar Stockton, more than Trinidad Chambliss, who, granted, didn't start the entire year, but you get where I'm going with this. Arch-Manning, I think, set himself up to have a lot of success in 2026, which, again, was always the year for him. This year, we thought he finished the year strong and all those things, thought he maybe start a little bit hotter. Next year was always going to be the year for him. So I love that it looks like Arch just kind of made the exhale, the exhale move of, okay, I can do this. Right around Mississippi State, when he went bonkers in that game, it felt like he kind of had a settle-in moment of, I belong here. I got to go let it rip, play within myself. I'm not winning the Heisman Trophy, all that. It's beside you at this point in time. He went and just played football. And when he plays football, he's only getting better, and I think he's proven he definitely belongs as one of the top guys in the SEC. So we'll see what happens next year. Not calling our shot right now for Texas with the national championship, but just to make this very, very clear, Arch-Manning and the discussion in the preseason was always irresponsible, but when it comes to next year, any strong takes you had about Arch, I think now you're more within your own rights to have those opinions. All right, it's not just clickbait stuff, man. Which is the opposite of what this show is about, man. For college football sickos, by college football sickos. So we appreciate y'all being dialed in and being subscribed. Let's finish up with an honest look at the Georgia Bulldogs. Hand up, did not think we'd be having this segment going into the semifinals of the college football playoff. I picked them to win the national championship once we got this 12-team field. I said I love the way they're playing. I love the way they are just in hunting mode right now. Kirby Smart, yet again, off an SEC championship with a bye, with a chance to go right his wrong from last year and Gunnar Stockton, all those things. And then what happens is you lose to Ole Miss, Heartbreak Central, and Cancun on 3 is where you're at. So I want to be sure I say this. There is no excuses for how Georgia finished the season. Like, yes, I picked them. I'm about to give you some copium, though. Georgia lost that football game because Ole Miss was better in crunch time in the fourth quarter than Georgia was. Nothing else to it. Trinidad Chambliss made more plays. And Georgia, whatever you want to pin it on, did not come up with the winning plays they needed to have. And that sounds like pretty much a no-duh statement. But, y'all, sometimes, like, college football, it's just a no-duh explanation that makes the most sense. And that's the only thing I can point to. So I got good news and I got bad news for you if you're a Georgia fan, trying to make sense of things right now with the dust settling on 2025. We'll start with the bad news because that was just always my first choice whenever I was given good news or bad news. I always ask for bad news first. The bad news in my estimation is the youth caught up to Georgia that you weren't always 1,000% sure about going out, throughout the season. It seems like it caught up to Georgia in that semifinal game, especially in the secondary, with Trinidad Chambliss going for like 360. We talked to Kirby Smart at SEC Media Days, and he was pretty, vocal that he really liked his team, but he also said we got a lot of first and second year players. We got a lot of guys that have never been in this kind of a setting before when it comes to a college football playoff game, is how I would imagine Kirby Smart's approaching that thing. So that's the bad news. I think the big moments kind of caught up to Georgia. Now, I'm not saying that Ole Miss had all that much more experience than you, but I do think it's fair to say the greenness of Georgia played a factor in losing that football game. Now, the good news is, with it being a younger roster and it being first and second year players, the portal does what the portal wants, but you should have a lot of these same guys from this year's squad on next year's squad. Now, the exciting thing about that is you already know they can play ball. I don't think anybody should be questioning what KJ Bolden is or what Ellis Robinson is or what Gunnar Stockton is. Like, nobody's questioning those dudes, I don't think, from an ability perspective. The thing that excites me now is I get this same roster, give or take a few players, with some scars. Because what Georgia didn't have in the context of this year was experience. Like, Gunnar Stockton was the only quarterback in this 12-team field that had started a playoff game. That's true. But even that was, his first start ever? So, like, the myelin this team is going to develop and the scar tissue this team is developing, I think that's going to really serve them well. Because I'll be shocked if Georgia gets back into that spot. Let's call it another year where they have a bye. And Kirby is on his third try now after winning the SEC, and he's going to go try and win a college football playoff game. I will be wildly surprised if we see Georgia in that spot a year ago and they lose that football game. If it happens, we'll talk about it. But I'd be wildly surprised if the scars of Georgia from this year don't play a massive factor in their success next season. I'm not trying to give you copium. I'm just saying that's how I'm perceiving this whole thing. Some people may say, JD, they expanded the playoff, they went with the portal and NIL, and all of a sudden now, Kirby Smart didn't win national championships anymore. Coincidence? I think not. I hear you. But are you looking at the way the college football playoff is changing? Are you looking at the way that it's much more difficult to go win a national championship? Same thing I said about Ohio State with Ryan Day. Same thing I'll say about Kirby Smart. It has never been more difficult to win a national championship in the history of college football. So you want to compare Kirby and Saban, more power to you. It's fun to talk about those two guys and where they stand in the context of, the best coaches to ever do it. It's not a fair comparison, dude. It's just not. It's not. Saban, while he still is the greatest of all time, never had to compete in a 12-team playoff where you had to win 3 or 4 games to win a national championship. Now, could Saban have done it? Absolutely. If there's anyone that could have dominated a 12-team playoff, I think Nick Saban's probably your first-round pick and your second-round pick. But the point stands in the sense that it is so freaking hard to get to a 12-team field and win 3 or 4 games in a row where you see different styles, you see different kinds of rosters, you have different kinds of play callers you're up against. Like previously in the BCS era in the 4-team playoff, you could kind of guesstimate down to maybe, 6 teams you were going to see in that 4-team field. It was going to be Ohio State. You're going to have to be ready to play like a Michigan. Have to be ready for like a Bama. Have to be ready for a Georgia. Like that was kind of a Clemson. Not saying we had the same field because that was never the case, and that's why we were pro 4-team field for the entirety of this whole thing. Different discussion for different time. But the point stands in you knew who you had to get through to win a national championship. In the 12-team playoff era, I don't think that's the same case. Like I don't think Ohio State had Miami on their bingo card for a team to get through to win a national championship. I don't think Georgia thought they'd have to play Ole Miss a second time in the Sugar Bowl to find a way to go win a national championship. The grind it puts on your team to be flexible and emotionally strong and have stamina in those departments, it's never been greater. So if you want to question Kirby Smart because in 2 years, the 12-team playoff, he's had a bye and lost both of the first-round games that he's played at least, more power to you. I think this was Kirby Smart's best coaching job. I really do. Like I think the youth they had and the way they progressed from September all the way through December, where they won the SEC with a bunch of first- and second-year players, right around 80% of those dudes making up the roster, and the amount of just close games they had to find a way to fight back and win, even the games that weren't decided by one score. The ways that they were able to come back from being down in the first half against Auburn, come back in the fourth quarter being down 9 against Ole Miss, like to be able to right their wrongs from that first time against Alabama to the second time against Alabama. That to me is coaching. That to me is Kirby Smart continuing to allow this team to evolve and develop, and a big reason why I thought they won the national championship, to be honest with you. But I don't think we've seen a Kirby Smart team, in recent memory at least, be as raw as this team was, and in the same exact way, take on his personality as much as this team did. They were physical, they were gritty, never said die. It sounds like I'm talking about Georgia in the past tense that they've passed away. That's not the case. But the point stands that this Georgia team had all the makings to go on a run, in my estimation. But again, it's a game of competitive plays, a game of big moments, and Ole Miss made more of those. There's no excuses for that, but you got to feel excited about the future here as long as Kirby Smart is your head coach. So moving forward, this is still a roster that can and will compete with anyone. Do you have to go to the transfer portal and make a couple additions? Everybody does. It's modern college football. You better go to the transfer portal and go get a couple pieces to make your team better. But I think the big thing for Georgia to finish with this, again, I love the calluses this team now has. Sucks to lose a playoff game. Let it suck. Let it hurt. Let it burn. Let it be something that you talk about all offseason during winter conditioning and going through summer 1 and summer 2. Play that game in the facility. Let this hurt. Because this hurt for this football team, should they utilize it properly, will be a big reason why they go further in the future if they end up doing that. So Georgia Bulldog fans, I know it sucks. Let it hurt. But at the end of the day, I think if you're questioning Kirby or questioning Georgia's staying power in modern college football, I don't think that's a genuine take relative to where we are right now and how hard it is to win a national championship in 2025. Everyone loves to talk about you don't win an Natty, you're a fraud, you're this, you're that. It's like maybe it's just really hard to win a national championship. Maybe it's just really hard to win 3 or 4 games in a row and hoist the hardware. But that's just me. All right, y'all. Again, appreciate y'all being locked in and being subscribed. If you haven't already, make sure you do that. If you're not sure if you've done that or you think you've done it, just double check. Helps us help you get the show to more people. And it is winning time on this show with a national title around the corner. Semis this week. Again, we will be in Atlanta. So excited to see all y'all there at the Peach Bowl. But for Cato on the 1s and 2s, myself, JD, PicKell, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all.